I've made a very big decision this past year that was extremely out of my comfort zone. I haven't shared it with a lot of people, but I finally felt that God is wanting me to use this as a visualization of what He has done for me and what He can do for you. Let me give you some backstory. Growing up, like a lot of people my age, I didn't have your typical family dynamic. I grew up with a single mom who fought hard to give me the best life she could, but I didn't meet my father until I was 18 years old. I didn't actually have much of a father figure in my life until my very late teen years, and by that time, I had already pretty much been shaped by my circumstances. Growing up like this, I hardly had the chance to see what a real man looked like. I drew my own conclusions of companionship naturally and searched to find something or someone to fill that fatherless void. So I got to a point where I felt safer with the familiar. You know, like the instability, the walls being put up, the isolation, etc. I felt safer with that than I did with true safety. And this can obviously cause a lapse in judgment. So I proceeded to involve myself with many different boys through my teen years, and I turned to drugs for a short period of time in my life and would just come to realize that what I was familiar with was not what truly made me free and what truly filled that void. Now, looking at a situation like this, if we were to look from the outside in, we naturally begin to assume the outcome of my life. So that's where stereotypes come from. We conclude who a person is based on their environment, the way they dress, the way they talk, and the way they interact with others. And if we take this a step further, we can believe that their past determines their future. And if we take it even a little bit further, we can start to believe that our past can determine our future. Philosophy calls this idea determinism. Determinism basically says that your experiences and external circumstances make you who you are and say what choices you make. It says that you have no say in who you are, but rather the external forces around you are what dictate your future. Well, with all of that being said, I was the stereotypical person that you might envision or picture when you think of a girl who grew up without a dad in her home, who didn't have an ideal childhood, and who had put herself in situations that were bound to end poorly as a result of these things. One might envision a girl who was bitter, untrusting, hard-hearted, hurting, disrespectful, and never really content or at peace with herself or others. So after turning to various things and attempts to fill the void, and those things coming up significantly short of the freedom that I needed, I began to start asking myself questions. I asked myself questions like, is this who I want to be? Is this who I want to be known as? Is maintaining this stereotype actually helping me? Are these types of relationships the same ones that I want for the rest of my life? Where has all of this gotten me? What defines me? Who even am I? It was at that moment that I started to realize that I had two options. Number one, I could be a victim of my past and a victim of determinism. Or, number two, I could be whoever the heck I wanted to be and not let my past have a say in it. So I came to the realization that I wanted to break the stereotype, and this began my journey to freedom. Now sometimes, when people think of freedom, they think all of a sudden you're free from something, like boom, you're free. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to being free from your past, it's really a long haul. It's not an overnight thing or even an over week thing or over a year thing. Freedom is a continual process, a daily decision to live your life like the person that God created you to be, rather than the person that circumstances tell you to be. So I began to question every action I did, and I reevaluated everything out of the lens of the person that I wanted to be. And after really about a year and a half of doing that, not only did I see the fruit in myself, but others started to see it too. And so as a result, my life looks nothing now like it would have. But finally, after that process, after God led me through the process, I felt Him ask me to take a huge leap into my next level of freedom. As a visual representation, I felt God asked me to do something a little bit extreme, something that can appear to be a little bit controversial to others. So stay with me when I tell you this. The thing that I felt that I needed to do was to get some of my tattoos removed. Now I know what you're thinking. Hannah, are you saying that God doesn't like tattoos? Like I said, this gets a little bit controversial, but consider this my disclaimer. I'm not against tattoos. I have more tattoos that I'm not sure I'll ever have removed. And hear me when I say, I don't think that everyone needs to take a step like this in order to experience freedom. I do, however, think that sometimes people need to act on the freedom they've been given, and that's what this was for me. So I chose these 2 tattoos to have removed because I originally chose to get them out of the influence of the stereotype that I described previously. And I want my body to be a visualization of not just the freedom I've seen in my life, but the freedom that God can bring to others. God has completely changed who I am as a person, and I never dreamt of being as free as I am today, or even being as happy as I am today. The thing about freedom that I feel that my tattoo removal story represents is that sometimes freedom takes investment. Sometimes it takes extra energy. Sometimes it's expensive, and sometimes freedom is painful, and sometimes it's a really long process. Sometimes it's quite the investment, but let me tell you, it's worth it all. If there's something that you can do that's a little bit extra to get you even just a little bit closer to the person that God has called you to be, the person that He created you to be, it's worth it. Do it. So here's the thing about freedom. Where does it come from? Jesus. So therefore, if you're struggling with something and you feel that you need to get some freedom, then you need to get some Jesus. That's the first step. The second step is to ask Him what steps you need to take to get you closer to Him, thus getting you closer to freedom. That might sound something like, God, what are some things that I can do to get closer to the person that you want me to be? How can I get closer to you? And I'm confident that He will show you if you ask Him. So today, take those next steps. Decide who you're going to be. Decide that you're not going to be a victim of your past or a victim of determinism, but you're going to invest in your own freedom. It's worth it. Do it.